The opposition PNP has named its shadow cabinet for the new parliamentary term. PNP President Mark Golding says the slate of 27 spokespersons and 9 deputies will provide oversight and hold the government accountable while presenting alternative policies that reflect its vision for a just, inclusive and progressive Jamaica.
In announcing this shadow cabinet, we present a team of bright minds, some experienced leaders and energetic new voices who are ready to serve the people of Jamaica. Together, they bring the creativity and determination required to chart a better course for our country. The Shadow Cabinet has been organized around 4 key pillars of national life: economic development, human development, physical development, and governance, ensuring a structured approach to addressing Jamaica's most pressing challenges.
Golding says the shadow cabinet will represent value for money.
I also wish to emphasize that the shadow cabinet comes at no additional cost to taxpayers. This is not about salaries or perks. Our spokespersons serve without pay in these shadow cabinet roles. At the same time, the shadow cabinet provides an important platform for our MPs to engage meaningfully on national issues and to demonstrate their potential and readiness to assume portfolio responsibilities in a future government.
Mark Golding, opposition leader. The flash flood warning issued for several parishes by the Met Service on the weekend has been discontinued. The affected parishes were St. Thomas, Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland and Hanover. The Met Service says the trough induced by Tropical Storm Imelda, which had been producing showers and thunderstorms over sections of southern and northwestern parishes since Saturday, had drifted towards the north and away from the island. It says satellite imagery, radar and the automated rainfall reports have indicated a reduction in rainfall amounts. Still, motorists and pedestrians are being advised to exercise caution and should not attempt to pass flooded roadways. One resident of Trafalgar Park in St. Andrew says she's at breaking point after her home was flooded for the second time in a week following heavy rains over the weekend. The woman, Nadine Thompson, says she woke up to the terrifying sight of water rushing through her home.
On Friday, after the rain, while during the rain, I was flooded out, totally flooded out. That was last week, Friday. And then last night again, I went to lay down around 11 something. And the rain started. Then I fell asleep. My tenant called my phone and he says, Nadine, the rain, may I flood out. And when I got up, I stepped in a pool of water off the bed. And then when I came out in the living room here and everywhere was flooded. Water was just rushing. Even when the rain stopped, the water still come. I mean, I wonder, but the rain not falling, but the water is still coming.
Ms. Thompson's home was among several which were damaged after heavy rains triggered flooding across sections of the corporate area on September 19. The overflow of a nearby gully was identified as the main source. At that time, Ms. Thompson said almost all her furniture and appliances were destroyed. She told the media on Sunday that she's out of options.
Right now, as we're speaking, the gully is blocked because there's a lot of debris and the water still around right now. So, suppose rainfall right now. The same problem because water in the gully right now, you can't see the whole of dirt and the this and the that in the gully right now. I don't know where I'm going to stay. My closest relative is in Manchester and I know I can't go there because I have to be here. No, I can't go in this. So where may I go now? I don't know. I don't like to lay down. Remember, I have high blood pressure. I don't just like to lay down a little bit. Because I not sleep last night.
Nadine Thompson, resident of Trafalgar Park in St. Andrew. Meanwhile, the Member of Parliament for South East St. Andrew, Julian Robinson, says efforts are underway to clear the blockage in the gully to prevent more flooding.
What we have done is to identify where the blockage in the gully is so that the blockage can actually be cleared so that the water can run freely and smoothly so that if you have heavy rains, you won't have the blockage and the flooding out again. And to clean up the backyard first and then to ensure that the residents can go back into their house. That is the first order of business for us at this point in time.
Julian Robinson, Member of Parliament for South East St. Andrew. He was among several persons who visited Ms. Thompson and helped with cleanup activities after both flooding incidents. Extensive efforts should be undertaken in the coming days to address the drainage challenges in Montego Bay, St. James, following days of heavy rain that battered sections of the city. The north and south gullies, which are the major drains in Montego Bay, were packed with debris up to Sunday evening. Member of Parliament for Central St. James, Heroy Clark, says the drains in the city were overwhelmed on the weekend.
But yes, the drains, we have quite a number of earthen drains, tributaries that empties into the north and south gully, which are our main carrier of surface water into the sea. And so it will be very heavily silted at this time. We need to continue to do some maintenance, but I am aware that NWA would have made an assessment of it and submit documentation for funds to do the clearing. But we continue to have that problem, especially in the Rosite, Green Pond, Salt Spring area. The hilly section where most of the, as I said, the drains are already earthen drains, and the siltation that takes place during these times.
Clark says a temporary bridge installed to facilitate the movement of some residents of Salt Spring has been displaced.
We have a situation where the highway crosses through a community known as Cottage in Salt Spring, and there's a bridge, overhead bridge, that they would be using to cross over the highway. So a ramp was created, and the heavy rain on Friday night into Saturday morning would have caused some amount of erosion, but the contracting company, is addressing that at the moment.
Heroy Clark, Member of Parliament for Central St. James. Meanwhile, Minister with Responsibility for Works, Robert Morgan, says recent heavy rains have mainly affected road infrastructure in western Jamaica and parts of rural St. Andrew.
We haven't had a lot of issues in Kingston and St. Andrew. We have had issues in the rural areas, especially rural and west rural, and we've had issues in the western side of the island. But there are still many roads that are in a challenging state that we haven't reached yet. So spent a record amount of resources over the last 2 years to upgrade our road infrastructure. We still have a lot of drains, gullies that we're planning to repair over the next 12 months. So we're just asking for the patience of citizens as we will be getting to these critical areas very shortly.
Robert Morgan, Minister with Responsibility for Works. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has taken issue with what it says is a misleading headline that was initially published in the Sunday Gleaner and circulated via its social media platforms. The headline read, "Government suspends doctor for running in general election." According to the ministry, while the body of the article referred to disciplinary action taken by the Southern Regional Health Authority, the headline created the false impression that the government, or by extension the ministry directly, suspended the individual in question. In a release on Sunday, the ministry insisted that this was inaccurate. It noted that the inaccuracy was widely circulated. The ministry says the Southern Regional Health Authority is a statutory body governed by its own board of directors and empowered by law to manage its own operational and human resource matters. It says while the ministry provides general policy guidance, statutory bodies are not subject to day-to-day direction from central government in these matters. The ministry highlighted that the reported interdiction reportedly stems from an alleged breach of the public service staff orders, which prohibit public servants from engaging in active political campaigning while still in office. The ministry says any disciplinary action is the responsibility of the employing authority, in this case the Southern Regional Health Authority. Additionally, the ministry says it knows that an amended post subsequently incorrectly referred to the Southeast Regional Health Authority. The ministry noted that the errors have since been corrected and the article reposted. The Jamaica Constabulary Force says it will not be dictated to by external groups on how to deploy body-worn cameras. The retort comes amid calls from lobby groups, Jamaicans for Justice and Stand Up for Jamaica, for legislation to mandate police use of body-worn cameras. JFJ's Executive Director, Michael Jackson, says the proposal will significantly reduce complaints against the police.
Legislating mandatory use of body-worn cameras would not intervene with the operations of the force, because every jurisdiction that I've looked at in terms of jurisdictions that have it in law or jurisdictions that are guided by policies, the best practices would indicate that, listen, even when it is mandatory, there are clear exceptions. if there are privacy concerns, then you can actually deactivate the body-worn camera. And those are some of the safeguards that JFJ made it very clear that we would want to be in a proposed legislation.
Michael Jackson, Executive Director of JFJ. The matter again came to the fore following the controversial police fatal shooting of 22-year-old Jamal Farquharson in Clarendon earlier this month. The JCF, in a previous statement, said it's awaiting the deployment of 1,000 additional body-worn cameras. In a subsequent release over the weekend, the JCF says it has consistently explained that the procurement process is often lengthy and complex. It says calls for the mandatory use of body cameras is therefore falsely implying resistance from the JCF. In reality, the JCF says it cannot mandate the use of a tool which it has in limited supply, even with the imminent acquisition of the 1,000 additional units. Meanwhile, the JCF is urging Jamaicans to play their part in reducing police fatal shootings. This includes calling on criminals to stop using deadly force and on Indicom to thoroughly probe each fatal incident and hold police accountable where necessary. The police are sounding the alarm over what they describe as a troubling trend of suicides being recorded in the second half of this year. According to its data, 8 suicides were recorded in July alone. That's a 33% increase when compared to July 2024. Suicides also rose in August and September, up by 20% and 25% respectively when compared to the corresponding months in 2024. Overall, 44 suicides have been recorded since the start of the year. That's 9 fewer than the 53 cases reported between January and September 2024. Of the 44 reported suicides, 4 occurred in St. Catherine North in July. The JCF says males continue to account for the vast majority of suicide cases. The most recent case involves former Miss Jamaica contestant Tyra Spalding. The 23-year-old was found dead at her home. Consulting psychologist Dr. Leakim Samaj is urging relatives and friends to take suicide warnings seriously and act quickly.
When a person starts talking about it, threatening to do it, take it seriously. Other kind of signs when people start giving away their things that they possess, and they try to get help. A psychologist, psychiatrist, social worker, but many times persons will deny. It's the hardest thing to get help for them because they'll say nothing wrong with them, but at least get them to a professional who can do the kind of questioning, the kind of assessment to understand the potential for them to act on that behavior.
Dr. Leakim Samaj, consulting psychologist. If you or someone you know is considering suicide, there are avenues through which you can seek help. You can call the Ministry of Health's Suicide Prevention Helpline at 888-639-5433, the You Matter chat line at 876-838-4897, or SafeSpot at 888-723-3776. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness has again warned international leaders that the ability of small island states to tackle climate change is being hampered by inadequate financing. His declaration came in the same week that the U.S. President Donald Trump described the climate crisis as a con.
Our efforts and those of other SIDS are severely constrained by the lack of predictable access to financing. The promise of $100 billion annually remains unfulfilled. The Loss and Damage Fund, established at COP28, was historic, yet its initial capitalization of $800 million is grossly inadequate. Developed countries must honor their commitments and scale up climate finance, recognizing that adaptation is a necessity for the survival of small island developing states.
The Prime Minister was addressing the UN General Assembly in New York last Friday. He used the opportunity to call for a rethinking of global climate financing models.
Jamaica also strongly supports innovative financing mechanisms, including debt for climate swaps, debt for nature swaps, and blended finance instruments that can unlock private sector investments in sustainable development projects while reducing debt burdens. We welcome initiatives such as the IMF's Resilience and Sustainability Trust and call for its expansion to support more countries in building climate resilience.
Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness. International news now. Moldova's pro-European ruling party has won a resounding victory over its Russian-leaning rival in a key parliamentary election. The results, published on Monday, signal a major boost for the country's bid to join the EU and break away from Moscow's orbit. The surprisingly strong performance on Sunday by President Maya Sandu's Party of Action and Solidarity against the Patriotic Bloc was a relief for the government and its European partners, who accused Moscow of seeking to influence the vote.